All right. And here we go. And we are live once again. Good to see you. Good to be here. Good to be seen. And this is the fourth video in a series of 8 on the topics of core issues that we all face as human beings. We're going to experience these things in our lives no matter what. There is no escape from these issues. It's part of being human. It's part of what allows us all to kind of share in this vulnerable and often difficult experience we call life. And so today's topic is on the subject of grief and loss. Now, this one is certainly not one that I'm super excited to talk about, because what I've been intending to do on these live videos is to just speak off of the cuff, no notes, no real direction necessarily of where I'm going to go. I know what I'm going to speak about. I know the topic is going to be grief and loss, and I know the core issue. I know it very well. As I said before, this is a part of all these topics are parts of a course, an online program that I have called The Power of Possibility, where I examine each of these 8 core issues that human beings face and how to overcome them, transform them, transcend them, and grow through them. And the frequencies and codes, I call them, that help us to do such. And it's packed with all sorts of insights and meditations and processes that help us to overcome these things. But also, as I've been speaking extemporaneously and just making myself more vulnerable and more comfortable sharing just whatever comes up. So I'm not holding anything back. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not perfect. I am not impervious to these issues and things. And so I know that I'm liable to just start talking about something that could be painful. There might still be some grief in here around some of these subjects and topics, which means that I am liable to experience some vulnerability. And, that's not the most comfortable thing for me to do. But I'll tell you what, I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. As the walls have come down more and more, and as I've become more open and more comfortable in just telling the truth in all areas of my life, then that vulnerability has actually gotten less frightening. But nonetheless, I still, have some reservations about being seen in that way. And with grief and loss, that is one of the most difficult experiences that we go through as human beings. So far I've talked about fear, I've talked about lack, and I've talked about control. Now moving up into this realm of grief and loss, we're really getting into the realm of the heart. And as you may know, as you probably have experienced, that is dangerous territory when we start to encounter the heart. And so a lot of spiritual awakening and systems and religions even talk about contacting the heart energy, opening the heart, and things like that. And when we haven't experienced it, or when we've been very blocked and locked down, it sounds like a very interesting topic to explore. It sounds like a wonderful thing. Open your heart, yes, but it comes with a price. And we're not often told about this in advance until it starts happening to us. And then now it's too late. The door has swung open. And once we open the door, it becomes less of an option to slam it shut again. And we start to have to face these deep emotions, these deep wounds within us. And we leave ourselves open to experiencing this pain very deeply. But at the same time, without an open heart, we don't have the capability and capacity of experiencing real intimacy and connection and deep love as well. So while we may still experience these things, it will be very surface level. My experience and my opinion on the matter is that the depth of the heart is incomprehensible. It will just continue to grow, to expand, to open and to deepen in our experience. And yet, the more deep we get, the more vulnerable we become. Now, this isn't a vulnerability that is weak. It just means that we are going to feel things. We're going to feel things. When we drop the walls, when we remove our armor and drop the protection, we're opening ourselves up to a much deeper level of experience. And this has its good and its bad. So just putting that out there. But yeah, grief is something that we'll all experience, even all have experienced. Even children, very small children experience this. And if you ever looked at a child and you take his toy away, let's say he's been misbehaving or acting in a selfish way, or maybe he's using his toy to hurt someone, and we take it away and you see what happens. So much anguish comes up, so much pain. It's almost incomprehensible that that much pain could be inside that little body. But we feel grief, we experience grief whenever we have loss of something that is important to us, something we've identified with. And so it doesn't matter if it's a toy, or if it's a loved one, or if it's our business, or if it's our reputation. When we lose these things, we'll experience grief. And to the degree that we are identified with them and attached to them, we will experience that degree of grief and loss. And so one of the most difficult experiences to go through is losing a loved one, whether it's going through a breakup or losing them to physical death. These experiences tend to just rip the heart wide open. And we experience how fragile this life can be. And for some of us, it's very difficult to recover from a loss like that. I know I've experienced a number of friends who have passed, have experienced several family members who have passed, and I've experienced the loss of a number of intimate partners that I was very much in love with. And also just leaving a relationship where I had children, there was an immense sense of grief because I wasn't going to be able to keep the family together. And I wasn't going to be able to spend as much time with my children, and we were going to have this rift now. And there was also remorse that came along with it, and guilt that came along with that, as well as the grief and the loss. And so all this pain. And a lot of people will experience pain like that, and they will just say, never again. I won't let anyone get close to me like that again. I'll keep the armor up. I'll keep people at bay because that pain is too much. But this is no way of living. You know, the Buddha had said something like, life is pain. Life is suffering, it's often translated as, but I think it was more like life is pain is what he was talking about. Because suffering is really optional. Once we attain to a certain level of awareness, pain is unavoidable, but suffering is the type of pain that we add to the pain with our stories, with our beliefs, with our clinging, with our refusal to accept things and to accept life. So it's one thing to have a broken arm, let's say, but then it's another thing to have a love for baseball, let's say, and I'm a pitcher, and the anguish that I'm never going to be able to pitch again, or I'm gonna have to put my career on hold, all of that suffering is mental. And that adds to the pain that I already experience. And so in the same thing, when we lose a loved one, we can feel like I will never have a love like that again. And maybe we go into this type of depression because of that grief and because of that loss. Or maybe we feel like life is just so unfair. Like, how could this happen? How could this person be taken from me? How could I lose this person? And so now, again, I'm adding to my suffering, because losing the person is one thing. You're not going to have that person in your life anymore. You're not going to have those physical experiences that you shared. But then we add to it with the story of, this isn't fair. It shouldn't have happened. The guilt of maybe, where did I go wrong? Or I should have spent more time with the person. I should have done this or that. I should have paid more attention. I should have not let them go, or I should have said something before they left. So at least I wouldn't be stuck with those last moments we shared together, just reverberating in my mind over and over again. And so we suffer more and more. We suffer, in the case of my own case, of the last long-term relationship I was in. When I broke up with Katie about 3 years ago, we were together for 8 years. And so we had a lot of time spent connecting. And we were very much, would say, identified with the relationship. We had many, many memories. We had been through a lot together. We had a lot of good times. One of the best relationships I've ever had. Person I felt so connected with, and so that we fitted together so well. And so despite the trouble and the challenges that we had, when we broke up, it was like something had just been stripped from my life, something that I had gotten so comfortable with, felt so at home with this person. And then going through the next several years without her, many times recalling those experiences and all of the good that we experienced together, and feeling like, why did I do that? Why didn't I try to fix it? How could I have allowed that to happen? And what could I have done differently? Plaguing myself in my mind. And just thinking like, will I ever have someone like that again? Here I'm becoming vulnerable. And so those thoughts at times led me into a very lonely place, very upset, very lonely. And thinking continuously that I don't know if I'll ever have that relationship, something that can compare to that again. And so that fear also compounds the grief. And then we start to, sometimes in my own case, I started to think things like, what's wrong with me? And so again, just compounding the issue, compounding the problem, and then going into isolation. And then experiencing several other relationships and comparing them to that relationship, realizing that, no, this isn't as good as that was. So I can't connect with this person in that way. And so I got to break up with this person now, and not opening myself up to potential relationships because of the pain and the grief that I was still holding on to and still processing. And it's taken me a few years to process through that pain and really get to the point to where I'm actually feeling ready for another relationship. And so my friend has posted a comment here. So she says, this hits home. A good friend of ours and a major part of the Orlando music community just passed tragically in an auto accident. So thank you for your kind words. Also, you look great. I see the work you're doing because you are glowing. Well, thank you so much for that. I apologize for laughing in that moment, but it just it made my heart warm. I don't actually apologize, but I do want to say that you have my condolences for your loss and for your community's loss. Because yes, the grief is real, but I'm also very inspired by what you said. So thank you for that. And yeah, it's difficult to talk about. That was not easy for me to just kind of go through that. And I've never admitted that publicly. I've never talked anything publicly about our breakup. And a lot of people who may watch this maybe remember us, and so they could probably sense that we had a pretty amazing connection when we were together. Again, we had our share of issues. And when I broke up with her, I didn't think that we were going to be able to overcome those issues. And so to me, it was like the lesser of two evils, something that needed to be done. And it needed to be done as quickly and cleanly as possible so that we could both move on and go about the business of healing, recovering, correcting, and then finding love again. And so this is part of our life experience. We experience this grief, we experience this loss, just like you. And it leaves a mark, it leaves an emptiness in our lives. And it takes some time to repair that. And life will never be the same, right? Life will never be the same without your friend that you lost. And yet, it also offers an opportunity for people to come together and to connect and to share that grief, to share that heartfelt connection, to share that love for that person, to celebrate their lives. And so even with the greatest difficulty, there's always that seed. There's always that silver lining of something that can be gained through this. And this is a very difficult reality. And of course, there will be a time that's needed for the healing to happen before we're able to and ready and in a place to see the good that can come from this. And so we have to honor that time. As a man once said, you can't rush your healing. So we don't want to delay it either, but it can't be rushed. It does have its own time. So, wow, I'm feeling super vulnerable in the moment. My heart has definitely opened to a greater degree since I began talking. And I do feel like something of a weight has been lifted just sharing that publicly. So I guess being seen, being allowed to be seen, that I am not impervious or completely unflackable. And so, yes, I'm human. I'm human. Hey guys, I'm human. Just so you know, I experience difficult things as well. No escaping that. But as they say, everything happens for a reason. We don't always see it in the moment. But I know that I would not be who I am today had I not gone through that experience. No way. That experience, these last few years, has caused tremendous growth in me, tremendous understanding, tremendous appreciation, and recognition and clarity about what I do want in relationship, or what I will want to say demand, because that seems a little stern, a little strong of a word, but the standards to which I will hold myself and the standards that I hold others I am in relationship with. And I know that I won't accept anything less. So things will only get better. So this is the gift that grief and loss can offer us, is that we can re-examine our lives. We can re-examine what's important to us and choose to spend our time in those areas and with those people. We can choose to appreciate what we have at an even deeper level. And we can learn from the mistakes that we've made in our past so that we don't repeat them in the future. And one thing I've noticed about life is that no matter how many times I make mistakes, it always gives me an opportunity to correct those mistakes. Now, sometimes I make the same mistake more than once. That's happened many, many times. I wish that I could say I was one of those people that I may make a lot of mistakes, but at least I don't make the same mistake more than once. That's not true for me. It's not been the case. But I think as I've gotten older, the bigger the mistake, the less likely I am to repeat it. And as I've become more aware and more contemplative and more honest with myself, that trend has continued and will continue. And so, regardless of the past, I am now in a much, much better position of preparation and readiness and clarity, lucidity, and knowingness for what is right for me, what I deserve, what I want, where to spend my time and energy, what is most important to me, what holds the most value for my life. And it has been grief that has taught me those lessons. So without that loss, without all those losses, again, I would not be in the position I am today, which is a position of much greater clarity on who I am, what's important to me, and what I want, how I wanted to spend my time, and how to love, cherish, appreciate others, how to share my gifts, and what to do with the rest of my life from here on out. So, as I come to the end of this video, I want to invite you to contemplate some of these things in your own life. Where have you experienced grief and loss, and or where do you experience that grief and loss? What are the lessons that it has taught you? Have you allowed it to make you more tender? Or has it caused you to build up walls of protection? And what would it be like to allow those walls to crumble and to find strength and depth and healing and wisdom in the face of that grief and that loss, to find deeper meaning and ultimately to find yourself? What would that be like if that were possible? So I'll leave you with that, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. And keep in mind that in the coming weeks, I'll be exploring more in depth how to transform these core issues, such as grief, and how to connect with these master frequency codes, which enable us to overcome and grow through and become stronger in the face of these difficult, painful issues that are unavoidable when you choose to play in the realm of life. So with that, I will leave you. I wish you well on your journey. Many blessings. May God light your path one step at a time. And I will see you on another video very soon.